Sarah Martinez had never held a real firearm before that Tuesday morning in October. The weight of her father's old service pistol felt foreign in her small hands as she stood in the parking lot of Pine Ridge Shooting Range, staring at the weathered wooden building that housed what locals called the most challenging range in 3 counties. Her father, Miguel Martinez, a retired Marine sergeant, had been pushing her to visit this place for months, insisting that every responsible citizen should know how to handle a weapon safely. The morning air was crisp, carrying the scent of pine needles and the distant sound of gunfire that made Sarah's stomach flutter with nervous energy. She had finally agreed to this outing after weeks of gentle persuasion from her father, who worried about her living alone in the city while working late shifts as a pediatric nurse. Miguel believed that confidence with firearms would give his daughter an edge in protecting herself, though Sarah remained skeptical about the whole endeavor. As they approached the entrance, Sarah noticed the eclectic mix of vehicles in the parking lot. Pickup trucks with gun racks sat next to luxury sedans, while motorcycles and compact cars filled the remaining spaces. The diversity surprised her, as she had expected to find only gruff, intimidating men who treated shooting as their primary hobby. Instead, she observed families loading equipment from their cars, elderly couples discussing their morning plans, and even a group of college-aged women chatting excitedly about their first shooting lesson. Miguel pushed open the heavy wooden door, and the smell of gun oil and cleaning solvents immediately filled Sarah's nostrils. The interior of Pine Ridge was more welcoming than she had anticipated, with comfortable seating areas, informational posters about gun safety, and display cases showcasing various firearms throughout history. Behind a glass counter, an older woman with graying hair and kind eyes smiled warmly at the newcomers. "You must be Miguel's daughter," the woman said, extending her hand across the counter. "I'm Betty Thompson, and I run the front desk here. Your father has been talking about bringing you in for target practice for months now. I'm glad you finally made it." Sarah shook Betty's hand, immediately feeling more at ease. "Yes, he's been quite persistent about it. I have to admit I'm pretty nervous about the whole thing." Betty laughed softly, a sound that reminded Sarah of her own grandmother. "Honey, everyone feels that way their first time. The key is learning proper safety procedures and starting slow. We've got excellent instructors here who will make sure you feel comfortable every step of the way." Miguel beamed with pride as he completed the necessary paperwork for both himself and Sarah. He had been coming to Pine Ridge for over a decade, ever since retiring from military service and settling in the nearby town of Cedar Falls. The range had become his sanctuary, a place where he could maintain the shooting skills that had served him well during 2 tours of duty overseas, while also connecting with fellow veterans and shooting enthusiasts who shared his respect for firearms. As they waited for their assigned lane, Sarah observed the other patrons preparing their equipment. She watched a teenage boy carefully cleaning his rifle under his grandfather's supervision, both of them discussing the importance of maintaining their weapon in pristine condition. At another table, a middle-aged woman was methodically loading magazines while explaining proper ammunition handling to her teenage daughter. The atmosphere was serious but not intimidating, filled with people who clearly took safety and responsibility seriously. "Range safety orientation starts in 5 minutes, announced a deep voice from across the room. Sarah turned to see a tall, imposing man in his 50s approaching their table. His gray hair was cut in a military style, and his posture suggested years of disciplined service. Despite his intimidating appearance, his smile was genuine and welcoming. "This is Dan Morrison, our head rangemaster," Miguel explained to his daughter. "Dan's the one who keeps everyone safe and makes sure all the rules are followed to the letter." Dan extended his hand to Sarah with a firm but not crushing grip. "Pleasure to meet you, Miss Martinez. Your father tells me you're completely new to shooting sports." "That's perfectly fine. We love working with beginners because they don't have any bad habits to unlearn. Today, we'll focus on fundamentals: safety, proper stance, sight alignment, and trigger control." The orientation session took place in a small classroom adjacent to the main range area. Dan's presentation was thorough and professional, covering everything from basic firearm mechanics to emergency procedures. Sarah found herself taking detailed notes, her nursing background making her particularly attentive to the safety protocols. Dan explained how the range operated on strict schedules, with specific times for rifle practice, pistol training and competitive shooting events. The most important rule Dan emphasized, pointing to a large sign on the wall, is that firearms are always treated as loaded, even when you know they're not. This mindset prevents accidents and ensures that everyone goes home safely at the end of the day. After the orientation, Dan led Sarah and Miguel to lane number 7, a well-maintained shooting position equipped with adjustable benches and excellent lighting. The lane was separated from neighboring positions by thick panels that absorbed sound and prevented distractions. Through the large window, Sarah could see the target range extending 100 yards into the distance, with paper targets mounted at various distances. Miguel unpacked his equipment methodically, explaining each item to his daughter as he arranged everything on the bench. His shooting bag contained cleaning supplies, spare magazines, eye and ear protection, and several boxes of ammunition. Sarah watched as he demonstrated how to inspect a firearm before use, checking the barrel for obstructions and ensuring that all mechanisms functioned properly. "We'll start with my .22 caliber rifle," Miguel explained, producing a sleek weapon from its padded case. "This is an excellent beginner's gun because it has very little recoil and makes less noise than larger calibers. You'll be able to focus on learning proper technique without being intimidated by loud bangs or strong kickback." Dan returned to their lane carrying a selection of paper targets featuring various designs. Some displayed traditional bullseye patterns, while others showed silhouettes or geometric shapes designed to help new shooters develop accuracy. He attached a simple bullseye target to the mechanical target retrieval system and sent it downstairs to the 25-yard mark. "For your first shots, we'll keep the distance relatively close," Dan explained to Sarah. "As you become more comfortable and your accuracy improves, we can move the target further away to increase the challenge." Sarah put on the required safety equipment, adjusting the ear protection until it felt comfortable and ensuring that her safety glasses provided clear vision. The transformation was immediate. The constant background noise of gunfire from other lanes became muffled, creating a cocoon of concentration around their shooting position. Miguel demonstrated proper shooting stance, showing Sarah how to position her feet for stability and balance. His movements were precise and practiced, the result of years of training and experience. He explained how the rifle should rest against her shoulder and how to achieve a consistent sight picture by aligning the front and rear sights with the target. "Breathing is crucial," Miguel instructed as Sarah practiced holding the unloaded rifle in shooting position. "Take a breath, let out half of it, and then hold while you squeeze the trigger slowly and steadily. The shot should almost surprise you when it fires." Dan observed Sarah's form carefully, making minor adjustments to her grip and stance. His coaching style was patient and encouraging, building confidence while ensuring that every movement followed established safety protocols. Sarah appreciated his attention to detail and the way he explained the reasoning behind each technique. When Sarah felt ready, Miguel loaded a single cartridge into the rifle chamber and handed the weapon to his daughter. The moment felt significant, representing a bridge between her previous life experiences and this new world of precision shooting. Her heart rate increased as she settled into shooting position, aligning the sights as she had been taught. The first shot surprised her with its relative quietness, thanks to the rifle's small caliber and her hearing protection. The recoil was minimal, just a gentle push against her shoulder rather than the violent kick she had expected. Through the spotting scope, Dan confirmed that her bullet had struck the target paper, though not particularly close to the bullseye center. "Outstanding first shot," Dan announced with genuine enthusiasm. "You hit the target on your very first try, which is more than many beginners can claim. Now let's work on improving your accuracy through practice and refinement of your technique." Over the next hour, Sarah fired approximately 50 rounds under careful supervision from both Dan and her father. Each shot taught her something new about trigger control, sight alignment, or breathing technique. Her grouping gradually improved as she developed muscle memory and learned to eliminate the small inconsistencies that affected accuracy. Other range patrons occasionally paused to offer encouragement or advice, creating a supportive community atmosphere that Sarah hadn't expected. An elderly gentleman named Frank, who had been shooting competitively for 40 years, shared tips about maintaining consistent hand pressure on the rifle grip. A young woman named Lisa, who worked as a police officer in a nearby city, demonstrated different shooting positions that might be useful in various situations. As the morning progressed, Sarah found herself genuinely enjoying the mental challenge of precision shooting. The activity required complete focus and concentration, temporarily blocking out all other concerns and stresses from her daily life. Each shot became a small meditation on control, patience, and technique. "I think you're ready to try some pistol shooting," Miguel suggested as Sarah completed her final rifle target. "The fundamentals are the same, but handguns require different techniques and offer unique challenges." Dan produced a .22 caliber pistol from the range's collection of rental firearms, explaining that many beginners found this particular model ideal for learning basic handgun skills. The weapon was heavier than Sarah had expected, requiring more effort to hold steady in shooting position. Dan demonstrated proper two-handed grip techniques and explained how stance differed between rifle and pistol shooting. Sarah's first pistol shots were less accurate than her rifle shooting, which Dan assured her was completely normal. Handguns required different muscle development and technique refinement, skills that would improve with practice and experience. Despite the initial challenge, Sarah found pistol shooting even more engaging than rifle work, appreciating the increased difficulty and the satisfaction that came with each successful shot. As they prepared to leave Pine Ridge that afternoon, Sarah reflected on how completely her perceptions had changed during just a few hours at the shooting range. The experience had been educational, challenging, and surprisingly enjoyable. She had expected to feel intimidated or overwhelmed, but instead found herself planning when she might return for more practice. Dan approached their table as they packed up equipment, carrying a sheet of paper that tracked Sarah's shooting scores throughout the day. "These are impressive results for a first-timer," he commented, showing her the steady improvement in her accuracy over the course of the session. "With consistent practice, you could become quite skilled at this sport." Miguel beamed with pride at his daughter's performance and obvious enthusiasm. He had hoped that introducing Sarah to shooting would help her feel more confident and capable, but her natural aptitude exceeded his expectations. As they walked toward the parking lot, Sarah was already asking questions about purchasing her own firearms and equipment. The drive home was filled with animated discussion about the day's experiences. Sarah described the mental discipline required for accurate shooting and how the activity had provided a unique form of stress relief. Miguel shared stories from his military days, explaining how marksmanship training had been one of his favorite aspects of service life. "I never thought I'd say this," Sarah admitted as they pulled into her driveway, "but I'm actually looking forward to going back next week. There's something really satisfying about the precision and control required for good shooting." That evening, Sarah researched shooting sports online, discovering the rich competitive traditions and various disciplines available to participants. She learned about bullseye shooting, practical pistol competitions, and long-range rifle matches that challenged shooters to engage targets at distances exceeding 1,000 yards. The depth and complexity of shooting sports impressed her, revealing a world far more sophisticated than she had previously understood. Over the following weeks, Sarah became a regular visitor to Pine Ridge, usually accompanying her father but sometimes practicing independently under Dan's supervision. Her skills improved rapidly, progressing from basic target shooting to more challenging disciplines. She purchased her own .22 caliber rifle and began keeping detailed shooting journals to track her progress and identify areas for improvement. The shooting community at Pine Ridge welcomed Sarah warmly, treating her as a valued member rather than a curiosity. She participated in informal competitions, attended safety seminars, and even helped with youth shooting programs designed to teach firearm safety and marksmanship to teenagers. The range became an important part of her weekly routine, providing both recreation and a sense of community with fellow shooting enthusiasts. Sarah's newfound hobby also had practical benefits beyond recreation. Her improved hand-eye coordination helped with delicate procedures at the hospital, while the mental discipline of shooting enhanced her ability to remain calm under pressure during medical emergencies. The confidence she gained from mastering a challenging skill translated into greater assertiveness in other areas of her life. As autumn turned to winter, Sarah's shooting abilities continued to develop at an impressive pace. Dan regularly commented on her natural talent and dedication to improvement, suggesting that she consider entering formal competitions. Her scores consistently ranked among the best at Pine Ridge, earning respect from experienced shooters who had been practicing for decades. The stage was set for the events that would unfold in the coming months. As Sarah's passion for shooting sports grew stronger and her skills reached levels that would soon capture attention far beyond the comfortable confines of Pine Ridge shooting range. Winter brought new challenges and opportunities to Pine Ridge Shooting Range. Sarah had been practicing regularly for 3 months, and her improvement was remarkable enough to draw attention from other members. What had started as nervous fumbling with an unfamiliar rifle had evolved into smooth, confident handling of multiple firearm types. Her shooting journals documented steady progress that impressed even veteran marksmen who stopped by to observe her practice sessions. Dan Morrison found himself looking forward to Sarah's visits more than he cared to admit. In his 15 years as rangemaster, he had seen thousands of beginning shooters pass through Pine Ridge's doors. Most showed modest improvement before plateauing at mediocre skill levels, content to plink at targets during occasional weekend visits. A few demonstrated natural ability that carried them to respectable amateur status with consistent practice and good instruction. Sarah belonged to an even rarer category of shooters, who combined natural talent with obsessive dedication to improvement. The first hint of Sarah's exceptional potential emerged during a casual conversation with Frank Kowalski, the elderly competitive shooter who had befriended her during those early weeks. Frank had been watching Sarah's progress with growing interest, noting technical details that escaped casual observers. Her breathing rhythm was naturally steady, her trigger finger moved with mechanical consistency, and her ability to call shots before checking the target indicated an intuitive understanding of marksmanship fundamentals. "That young lady has something special," Frank confided to Dan during a quiet moment between shooting sessions. "I've been competing for 42 years, and I can count on one hand the number of people I've seen who possessed her combination of natural ability and work ethic. If she continues developing at this pace, she could be competing at national levels within a couple of years." Dan had been thinking along similar lines but hesitated to voice such ambitious predictions. The shooting sports world was filled with cautionary tales of promising beginners who burned out quickly or whose progress stalled when they reached more challenging skill levels. However, Sarah's consistency and hunger for improvement suggested that she might indeed be one of those rare individuals destined for excellence in competitive marksmanship. The turning point came on a snowy February morning when Pine Ridge hosted its monthly precision rifle match. Sarah had been attending these events as an observer, learning rules and procedures while watching experienced competitors demonstrate advanced techniques. The matches typically drew 20 to 30 participants from throughout the region, ranging from serious amateurs to former military marksmen who maintained their skills through regular competition. Miguel had encouraged Sarah to enter the novice division, arguing that competition experience would accelerate her learning regardless of her final scores. Sarah remained hesitant, worried that her relative inexperience would embarrass her father or reflect poorly on Dan's instruction. The night before the match, she spent hours cleaning and adjusting her rifle while reviewing shooting fundamentals in her mind. Competition morning arrived, with temperatures hovering near freezing and light snow falling intermittently. Sarah arrived early to help with setup duties, arranging benches and hanging fresh targets while experienced competitors prepared their equipment. The atmosphere was friendly but serious, with participants focused on their pre-match routines while exchanging good-natured banter about predicted scores and weather conditions. Registration revealed that 18 shooters had entered the match, divided between novice and experienced categories. Sarah found herself in the novice division alongside 2 teenage boys and a middle-aged woman named Janet, who worked as an accountant in a neighboring town. The experienced division included several former military personnel, 3 retired police officers, and Frank Kowalski, who despite his age remained one of the region's most formidable competitive shooters. Dan conducted the mandatory safety briefing with his usual thoroughness, emphasizing the additional precautions required when multiple shooters were firing simultaneously. Competition rules were stricter than regular range protocols, with specific procedures for handling equipment malfunctions and strict time limits for completing each stage of fire. Sarah listened intently while trying to calm her pre-competition nerves. The match format consisted of 3 different shooting positions at varying distances. Competitors would fire 10 shots prone at 100 yards, 10 shots sitting at 75 yards, and 10 shots standing at 50 yards. Each position required different techniques and presented unique challenges, testing the full range of marksmanship skills under time pressure. Sarah drew firing position number 4 for the first relay, finding herself between Janet and one of the teenage competitors named Bobby. As she arranged her equipment on the shooting bench, Sarah noticed that her hands were trembling slightly from nervousness. Miguel offered quiet words of encouragement from behind the firing line, while Dan reminded all competitors about the importance of maintaining muzzle discipline throughout the match. The prone position began with 5 minutes of preparation time, during which competitors could adjust their equipment and take unlimited sighting shots to confirm their rifles were properly zeroed. Sarah's first shot struck the target well within the scoring rings, building her confidence for the actual competition string. Her subsequent sighting shots clustered tightly around the bullseye center, drawing appreciative nods from nearby competitors who couldn't help but notice her excellent grouping. When the actual competition began, Sarah fell into a rhythm that felt surprisingly natural despite the pressure. Each shot followed the same deliberate process. Settle into position, align the sights, control breathing, squeeze the trigger smoothly. The background noise of other rifles firing faded into insignificance as she focused entirely on the technical demands of precision shooting. Her 10 record shots grouped in a pattern that would have impressed experienced marksmen. The sitting position proved more challenging, requiring Sarah to adapt her technique for a less stable shooting platform. She had practiced this position extensively during recent range visits, but competition pressure added complications that practice sessions couldn't replicate. Despite some initial uncertainty, her shots maintained acceptable accuracy while building confidence for the final shooting position. Standing offhand shooting represented the most difficult challenge in precision rifle competition. Without any artificial support for the rifle, shooters had to rely entirely on their natural stability and muscular control to maintain accuracy. Sarah's nursing background proved advantageous here, as her job required long hours of standing while performing delicate procedures requiring steady hands. Her standing shots surprised everyone, including Sarah herself. The grouping was tighter than many experienced competitors achieved in this demanding position. Miguel watched with growing amazement as his daughter demonstrated skill levels that typically required years of dedicated practice to develop. Other competitors began paying attention to the quiet young woman who was posting scores that challenged some very experienced marksmen. When the first relay concluded, Dan called competitors forward to score their targets using the official measuring gauges. Competition scoring was more precise than casual range shooting, with fractional point values assigned based on exact bullet placement within the scoring rings. Sarah's combined score was announced as 287 out of a possible 300 points, a result that stunned everyone familiar with typical novice performance. That's an exceptional score for anyone, much less a first-time competitor. Frank Kowalski commented as results were posted on the bulletin board. I've been shooting matches for 4 decades, and I can remember maybe 3 or 4 novices who broke 280 points in their first competition. You should be very proud of that performance. The experienced division shooters fired their match while Sarah and her fellow novices observed from the viewing area. Watching these accomplished marksmen demonstrated techniques and approaches that Sarah filed away for future. She noticed subtle differences in their shooting positions and equipment setups, mental notes that would influence her own development as a competitive shooter. Final results revealed that Sarah had won the novice division by a significant margin, with her 287 score exceeding the second-place finisher by 12 points. More remarkably, her score would have placed third in the experienced division, ahead of several shooters with years of competition experience. The achievement was unprecedented in Pine Ridge's competition history. Dan Morrison had been running matches at Pine Ridge for over a decade, and he had never seen a first-time competitor post scores that approached Sarah's performance. As he prepared the awards presentation, he found himself reconsidering his assessments of her potential. Perhaps Frank's predictions about national-level competition weren't as far-fetched as they had initially seemed. The award ceremony was brief but meaningful, with Sarah receiving a small trophy and a gift certificate for range supplies. More important than the physical awards was the recognition she received from fellow competitors, many of whom approached her with congratulations and invitations to participate in upcoming matches at other ranges throughout the region. You need to start thinking seriously about competitive shooting, Dan advised Sarah as she packed her equipment after the match. Talent like yours doesn't come along often, and with proper training and competition experience, you could accomplish remarkable things in this sport. Over the following weeks, Sarah found herself researching competitive shooting organizations and match schedules with growing enthusiasm. She learned about different disciplines within the sport, from conventional bullseye shooting to practical rifle competitions that simulated real-world shooting scenarios. Each discipline offered unique challenges and opportunities for skill development. Miguel was simultaneously proud and concerned about his daughter's rapid progress and growing obsession with competitive shooting. While he had hoped that shooting sports would build her confidence and provide enjoyable recreation, he worried that her perfectionist personality might lead to unrealistic expectations and potential disappointment. The nursing profession had already demonstrated Sarah's tendency to set extremely high standards for herself. Frank Kowalski became an unofficial mentor, sharing decades of competition experience while helping Sarah understand the mental aspects of high-level marksmanship. He explained how competitive pressure affected different shooters and provided techniques for managing stress during important matches. His guidance proved invaluable as Sarah prepared for more challenging competitions beyond Pine Ridge's monthly matches. Sarah's equipment needs evolved rapidly as her skills progressed beyond the capabilities of basic firearms and accessories. She invested in a precision rifle designed specifically for competitive shooting, along with specialized accessories like adjustable triggers, precision optics, and custom-fitted shooting clothing. Each upgrade required research and careful consideration of how different options might affect her performance. The shooting journals that Sarah maintained became increasingly detailed, tracking not just scores but weather conditions, equipment settings, mental state, and technical observations from each practice session. This systematic approach to improvement reflected her scientific background and analytical mindset, treating marksmanship development as a complex problem requiring methodical solutions. Practice sessions at Pine Ridge took on new intensity as Sarah worked to refine specific aspects of her technique. She spent hours perfecting her natural point of aim, eliminating small inconsistencies that affected shot placement at longer distances. Dan provided advanced instruction that went far beyond basic safety and fundamentals, introducing concepts typically reserved for serious competitive shooters. Other Pine Ridge members began scheduling their visits to coincide with Sarah's practice sessions, curious to observe her technique and progress. The quiet young nurse had become something of a celebrity within the local shooting community, with her scores and achievements becoming regular topics of conversation. The attention was flattering but sometimes uncomfortable for someone who preferred to focus quietly on skill development. Sarah's first major competition outside Pine Ridge was scheduled for early spring at a range facility 2 hours away. The match would draw competitors from across the state, including several nationally ranked shooters who participated in regional matches to maintain their competitive edge. Dan strongly encouraged Sarah to enter, arguing that exposure to higher levels of competition would benefit her development regardless of her final placing. Registration for the state-level match required submitting recent scores and paying entry fees significantly higher than local competitions. ABDST, DHAST, wondering if she was ready for such challenging competition after only a few months of serious shooting. Miguel supported her entry, believing that his daughter's natural competitiveness would help her rise to whatever challenges she encountered. The weeks leading up to the state match were filled with intensive preparation and practice. Sarah refined her equipment setup, practiced shooting in various weather conditions, and worked with Frank on mental preparation techniques used by elite competitive shooters. Her practice scores continued improving, building confidence for what would be the most challenging competition of her brief shooting career. As spring approached and the state match drew near, Sarah found herself standing on the threshold of a completely new phase of her life. The quiet Tuesday morning when she had first reluctantly agreed to visit Pine Ridge seemed like years rather than months in the past. What had begun as a father's concern for his daughter's safety had evolved into a passion that was reshaping her entire approach to personal challenges and self-improvement. The state championship match was scheduled for the third weekend in April at Riverside Precision Range, a facility renowned throughout the region for hosting high-level competitions. Sarah had spent the previous month preparing intensively, adjusting her equipment and refining her technique under Dan's increasingly sophisticated instruction. Her practice scores had reached levels that consistently exceeded her first competition performance, but she understood that competing against elite shooters would present entirely different challenges. The drive to Riverside took Sarah and Miguel through scenic countryside dotted with farms and small towns. Spring was arriving early that year, with wildflowers blooming along the roadside, and trees beginning to show their first green leaves. Despite the beautiful scenery, Sarah found herself reviewing mental checklists and visualizing shooting sequences, her mind focused entirely on the competition ahead. Riverside Precision Range was impressive in both size and sophistication compared to the familiar confines of Pine Ridge. The main building housed a pro shop stocked with high-end equipment, comfortable meeting rooms for safety briefings, and a restaurant serving breakfast and lunch to competitors and spectators. The shooting ranges themselves extended far beyond Pine Ridge's 100-yard maximum, with covered firing lines accommodating matches at distances up to 600 yards. Registration revealed that 47 shooters had entered the Precision Rifle Championship, divided between several skill categories. Sarah found herself in the intermediate division along with 19 other competitors, most of whom had been shooting competitively for several years. The advanced division included several nationally ranked marksmen, whose names Sarah recognized from shooting magazines and online forums. Equipment inspection was more thorough than anything Sarah had experienced at local matches. Range officials carefully examined each rifle to ensure compliance with competition rules regarding modifications and accessories. Sarah's relatively simple setup drew approving nods from the inspectors, who appreciated her focus on fundamentals rather than expensive gadgets that sometimes distracted beginning competitors from developing proper technique. The mandatory safety briefing was conducted by James Patterson, Riverside's head range master and a former member of the United States national shooting team. His presentation was both comprehensive and intimidating, emphasizing the elevated standards expected during state-level competition. Any safety violation or unsportsmanlike conduct would result in immediate disqualification and possible suspension from future events. Competition format consisted of 4 stages, fired over 2 days, testing shooters across a range of distances and positions. Saturday would feature prone shooting at 200 yards and sitting position at 150 yards. Sunday's challenges included standing position at 100 yards and a demanding offhand stage at 75 yards, with time limits that added significant pressure to an already difficult shooting position. Sarah drew firing point number 12 for the first relay, positioning her in the middle of the firing line where she would be surrounded by experienced competitors. As she arranged her equipment, she couldn't help but notice the sophisticated gear employed by many other shooters. Custom rifles worth thousands of dollars sat alongside precision optics and specialized accessories designed to maximize accuracy potential. Miguel found a seat in the spectator area behind the firing line, where he could observe Sarah's performance while staying out of her way. Dan Morrison had made the trip as well, serving as Sarah's unofficial coach and providing moral support during what would undoubtedly be the most challenging competition of her brief career. Several Pine Ridge members had also driven over to cheer for their range's rising star. The first stage began with 20 minutes of preparation time, during which competitors could fire unlimited sighting shots to confirm their rifles were properly adjusted for the 200-yard distance. Sarah's initial shots landed slightly below her point of aim, requiring minor scope adjustments to achieve perfect zero. Her sighting group was tight enough to impress nearby competitors, who glanced over to see how their competition was progressing. When the actual competition commenced, Sarah settled into the familiar rhythm that had served her well during practice sessions. The longer distance demanded greater precision than anything she had attempted previously, with small errors in technique becoming magnified across the extended range. Her first record shot struck the 9-ring, a solid start that built confidence for the remaining 19 shots. The prone position felt comfortable and natural as Sarah worked through her string of record shots. Each shot followed the same deliberate process she had practiced hundreds of times at Pine Ridge, with careful attention to breathing control and trigger squeeze. The pressure of competition seemed to sharpen her focus rather than creating the nervousness she had feared. Her 20th and final shot completed a group that drew appreciative comments from competitors on either side of her firing point. The tight cluster of bullet holes represented shooting that would challenge even experienced marksmen. When scoring was completed, Sarah's 192 out of 200 possible points placed her third overall in the intermediate division and ahead of several shooters in the advanced category. "Outstanding shooting for your first state match," commented the shooter to Sarah's left, a retired military sniper named Robert Chen. "That's the kind of grouping that wins matches at this level. You should be very proud of that performance." The sitting position stage proved more challenging, with the less stable shooting platform requiring adjustments to Sarah's technique. She had practiced extensively in this position, but Competition pressure combined with unfamiliar surroundings created complications that hadn't existed during range practice. Her shots were less consistent than the prone stage, though still respectable considering her limited experience. Saturday evening was spent reviewing the day's performance and preparing for Sunday's more demanding stages. Dan helped Sarah analyze her shooting data, identifying small technical issues that could be corrected before the final 2 stages. Miguel treated them to dinner at a local restaurant, where conversation centered on the remarkably high level of competition and Sarah's impressive performance against experienced shooters. "I never imagined shooting at this level when I first started coming to Pine Ridge," Sarah reflected over dessert. "The precision required is incredible, and everyone here takes it so seriously. It's like being part of something much bigger than just hitting targets for fun." Sunday morning arrived with perfect weather conditions, calm winds, moderate temperatures, and excellent visibility that would eliminate environmental factors as excuses for poor performance. The standing position stage was scheduled first, followed by the challenging offhand final stage that would determine overall winners in each division. Standing position shooting at 100 yards represented a significant step up in difficulty from anything Sarah had attempted previously. Without any artificial support for her rifle, she had to rely entirely on natural stability and muscle control to maintain accuracy. Her nursing background proved beneficial here, as her profession required long periods of standing while performing precise tasks requiring steady hands. The key to successful standing position shooting lay in finding a natural point of aim that minimized muscular tension while maintaining sight alignment. Sarah had practiced various techniques during preparation sessions, eventually settling on a stance that felt comfortable and repeatable under pressure. Her practice scores in this position had been encouraging, though competition conditions would provide the ultimate test. Her standing position performance exceeded all expectations, with a score that ranked among the best in either division. The grouping was remarkably tight for such a challenging shooting position, demonstrating exceptional body control and technique refinement. Experienced competitors began paying serious attention to the quiet young woman who was posting scores that challenged their own hard-earned expertise. The final stage would prove decisive for overall placings in all divisions. Offhand shooting at 75 yards with strict time limits created pressure that separated accomplished shooters from truly exceptional ones. Each competitor would fire 10 shots in 7 minutes, with additional pressure created by the knowledge that this stage often determined final standings. Sarah approached the final stage with a mixture of confidence and nervous energy. Her performance through the first 3 stages had established her as a serious contender for top honors in the intermediate division, but the offhand stage was notoriously unpredictable. Even experienced shooters sometimes struggled with the demanding combination of precision and time pressure. As she settled into shooting position for the final stage, Sarah drew upon all the mental preparation techniques that Frank Kowalski had taught her during recent months. She focused on controlling her breathing and maintaining the relaxed concentration that had served her well throughout the competition. The noise and activity around the firing line faded into background insignificance. Her final stage performance was nothing short of spectacular. Shot after shot found the scoring rings with mechanical consistency, building a group that had spectators and competitors alike shaking their heads in amazement. When the time limit expired, Sarah had completed all 10 shots with time to spare and accuracy that would be discussed at Riverside for years to come. Scoring of the final stage revealed that Sarah had achieved a nearly perfect score, dropping only 3 points across 10 shots in the most demanding position. Her combined total across all 4 stages was 381 out of 400 possible points. A score that not only won the intermediate division, but would have placed second overall in the advanced division behind only the defending state champion. The awards ceremony that afternoon was more elaborate than anything Sarah had experienced at local matches. State championship winners received substantial trophies along with recognition that would open doors to higher levels of competition. Sarah's victory speech was brief but heartfelt, thanking her father for the initial encouragement, and Dan Morrison for his patient instruction and guidance. "This has been an incredible experience," Sarah told the assembled competitors and spectators. 6 months ago I had never held a firearm, and now I'm standing here with a state championship trophy. The shooting sports community has been wonderfully welcoming and supportive throughout my learning process. The drive back to Pine Ridge was filled with excited discussion about Sarah's achievement and its implications for her future in competitive shooting. Miguel was simultaneously proud and amazed by his daughter's rapid development from nervous beginner to state champion in less than 7 months. Dan couldn't stop grinning as he contemplated the recognition that Sarah's victory would bring to Pine Ridge Shooting Range. News of Sarah's championship spread quickly throughout the regional shooting community, generating articles in several gun magazines and online forums. Her rapid rise from complete novice to state champion was unprecedented in the sport's history, sparking discussions about natural talent versus dedicated practice among shooting enthusiasts nationwide. Invitations to compete in national-level matches began arriving within weeks of the state championship. Tournament directors who had heard about Sarah's remarkable achievement wanted to see if her performance could translate to even higher levels of competition. The attention was flattering but somewhat overwhelming for someone who had initially approached shooting as casual recreation. Frank Kowalski became even more involved in Sarah's development, sharing contacts within the national shooting community and providing advice about equipment upgrades that would be necessary for elite competition. His decades of experience proved invaluable as Sarah navigated the complex world of high-level competitive shooting with its specialized equipment requirements and unwritten social protocols. Sarah's success also brought changes to Pine Ridge Shooting Range itself. Dan found himself fielding calls from shooters throughout the region who wanted to train where the state champion had developed her skills. New members joined specifically to learn from the range master who had guided Sarah's rapid development, bringing increased revenue and recognition to the facility. The quiet Tuesday morning when Sarah had first reluctantly agreed to accompany her father to the shooting range now seemed like ancient history. Her life had been transformed in ways that neither she nor Miguel could have imagined when they walked through Pine Ridge's front door for the first time. What had begun as a father's concern for his daughter's safety had evolved into a passion that was reshaping her entire identity and future aspirations. As summer approached and national competitions beckoned, Sarah found herself standing at another crossroads in her shooting career. The local and state levels had been conquered with remarkable speed, but the challenges ahead would test whether her rapid development could continue against the most accomplished marksmen in the country. The next phase of her journey would determine if she was merely a talented amateur or potentially something much more significant in the shooting sports world. The National Precision Rifle Championship was held annually at Camp Perry, Ohio, a legendary facility that had hosted competitive shooting events for over a century. Sarah's invitation to compete came directly from the National Rifle Association, recognizing her unprecedented rise through state-level competition. The event would attract the finest marksmen from across the United States, including Olympic team members, military champions, and civilian shooters who had devoted decades to perfecting their craft. Preparation for national competition required a complete upgrade of Sarah's equipment and training regimen. Frank Kowalski introduced her to his former teammate, Jennifer Walsh, a 2-time national champion who agreed to serve as Sarah's coach for the upcoming season. Jennifer's involvement brought sophisticated training methods and mental preparation techniques that had been developed at the highest levels of international competition. The first training session with Jennifer took place at a specialized range facility, 2 hours from Pine Ridge, where environmental conditions could be precisely controlled and monitored. Jennifer immediately identified several technical issues that had been masked by Sarah's natural talent, but would become problematic against elite competition. Subtle inconsistencies in her shooting position and trigger control needed correction before they became ingrained habits. "You have remarkable natural ability," Jennifer explained during their initial assessment session. "But competing at the national level requires technical perfection that goes far beyond what's needed for local and state matches. Every small error becomes magnified when you're shooting against the best marksmen in the country." The training program that Jennifer developed was more intensive and systematic than anything Sarah had previously experienced. Each practice session focused on specific technical elements with detailed analysis of performance data and video review of shooting form. Sarah's nursing schedule was adjusted to accommodate increased training time, with hospital administrators supporting her pursuit of national championship goals. Equipment upgrades included a custom-built rifle designed specifically for precision competition, along with specialized ammunition loaded to match her particular firearms preferences. The new setup cost more than Sarah's annual salary, but Jennifer insisted that competing with inferior equipment would limit her potential achievement regardless of her skill level. Frank Kowalski helped secure sponsorship from several companies eager to associate with Sarah's rising star. Physical conditioning became an essential element of Sarah's preparation, with exercises designed to improve muscle stability and endurance during long competition days. Jennifer introduced yoga and meditation practices that enhanced body awareness and mental focus, skills that proved surprisingly applicable to precision shooting. The holistic approach to performance improvement reflected lessons learned from decades of elite competition experience. Mental preparation received equal attention to technical skill development. Jennifer taught visualization techniques that allowed Sarah to rehearse perfect shooting sequences mentally, building confidence and consistency that would be crucial during high-pressure competition moments. Sports psychology concepts that had been developed for Olympic athletes were adapted specifically for precision shooting applications. The transformation in Sarah's shooting over 3 months of intensive coaching was remarkable. Her practice scores improved significantly, but more importantly, her consistency reached levels that impressed even Jennifer. The random variations that occasionally affected her performance were gradually eliminated through systematic training and technical refinement. Sarah's first national-level competition was a regional qualifying match held in North Carolina, featuring many of the same shooters who would be competing at Camp Perry later in the season. The match served as both a learning experience and a benchmark for measuring her development against elite competitors. Jennifer accompanied Sarah as coach, providing tactical advice and emotional support during what would be her debut on the national stage. The Sand Hills Precision Range was another step up in sophistication from any facility Sarah had previously visited. Electronic scoring systems provided immediate feedback on shot placement, while environmental monitoring equipment tracked wind conditions and atmospheric pressure throughout the competition day. The attention to detail reflected the serious nature of elite competitive shooting. Registration revealed that 63 shooters had entered the match, including 8 former national champions and several members of the United States international shooting team. Sarah found herself classified as a distinguished novice based on her state championship victory, placing her in direct competition with shooters whose achievements she had been reading about in magazines for months. The opening ceremony featured remarks from Bob Anderson, a 3-time Olympic medalist who served as honorary chairman of the event. His speech emphasized the traditions and values that defined competitive shooting sports, along with encouragement for newcomers like Sarah, who represented the future of the sport. The formal atmosphere was both inspiring and intimidating for someone accustomed to the casual environment of local matches. Competition format consisted of 2 days of shooting across multiple distances and positions, with aggregate scores determining overall placings. Day 1 would feature prone and sitting positions at extended ranges, while Day 2 included standing and kneeling positions that tested different aspects of marksmanship skill. Each stage was more demanding than anything Sarah had encountered during her state championship victory. Sarah drew firing point number 31-7 for the first relay, positioning her near the center of the massive firing line. The scale of the competition was overwhelming, with dozens of world-class shooters preparing their equipment, while spectators and media representatives documented the proceedings. Jennifer remained close by, providing quiet coaching advice and helping Sarah maintain focus amid the distractions. The prone stage at 300 yards represented a significant increase in difficulty compared to Sarah's previous competition experience. Wind conditions added complexity that required constant monitoring and compensation, while the extended distance magnified every technical imperfection. Sarah's first few sighting shots revealed that her rifle needed minor adjustments to account for the different atmospheric conditions. Her competition performance in the prone stage was solid but not spectacular by national standards. The grouping was respectable and her score competitive, but the precision demonstrated by top shooters was clearly superior to her current ability level. Jennifer provided encouraging feedback while identifying specific areas that needed improvement for future competitions. The sitting position stage proved more challenging, with shifting wind conditions creating problems that Sarah had not encountered during practice sessions. Her shots wandered more than expected, resulting in a score that dropped her toward the middle of the field. Despite the disappointing performance, Jennifer emphasized that learning to handle difficult conditions was part of developing into a complete competitor. Day 1 concluded with Sarah ranked 28th overall, a respectable showing for her first national competition but well behind the leaders. The top shooters demonstrated consistency and technical mastery that reflected years of elite competition experience. Sarah spent the evening reviewing her performance with Jennifer, analyzing mistakes and developing strategies for Day 2 improvement. Today was about learning what national competition demands, Jennifer explained during their debriefing session. The precision required is extraordinary, and environmental factors play a much larger role than at lower levels. Tomorrow, focus on executing your techniques perfectly, regardless of what other shooters are doing. Day 2 began with the standing position stage, historically Sarah's strongest shooting position. The 150-yard distance was manageable, but competition pressure and accumulated fatigue from the previous day created challenges that tested her mental preparation. Jennifer's coaching during preparation time helped Sarah rediscover the relaxed focus that had characterized her best performances. Her standing position shooting was impressive, climbing several places in the overall standings with a score that ranked among the day's best performances. The grouping demonstrated exceptional body control and technique refinement, proving that Sarah's rapid development could translate to elite competition when conditions favored her strengths. Experienced competitors began taking notice of the newcomer who was challenging established hierarchy. The final kneeling position stage would determine final placings in a competition that had remained close throughout. Sarah approached this crucial stage with confidence built from her strong standing position performance, but awareness that many top shooters traditionally saved their best for last. The pressure of potential top 20 finish added intensity that was new to her competitive experience. Her kneeling position shooting exceeded all expectations, with a score that moved her into 15th place overall and established her as a legitimate contender for future national competitions. The final grouping was tight enough to impress seasoned observers who had initially dismissed her as an inexperienced newcomer, unlikely to challenge established competitors. Final results showed Sarah finishing 13th overall, an achievement that stunned the competitive shooting community and validated Jennifer's assessment of her potential. Several shooting magazines requested interviews, while equipment manufacturers inquired about possible sponsorship arrangements. The attention was gratifying but somewhat overwhelming for someone still adjusting to national-level competition demands. The awards ceremony was brief but meaningful, with special recognition for Sarah's achievement as the highest-finishing first-time competitor. Her brief acceptance remarks thanked her coach, family, and the Pine Ridge community that had supported her rapid development. The speech was well received and helped establish her reputation as a gracious competitor who respected the sport's traditions. Media coverage of Sarah's performance was extensive, with articles appearing in major shooting publications and online forums. Her rapid rise from complete novice to national-level competitor captured widespread attention and sparked discussions about talent development within the shooting sports community. Several universities with competitive shooting programs expressed interest in recruiting her for their teams. Return to Pine Ridge was triumphant, with the local shooting community celebrating Sarah's achievement as validation of their range's quality instruction and supportive environment. Dan Morrison found himself fielding calls from media representatives and potential new members who wanted to train where a national competitor had developed her skills. The recognition brought increased visibility and business to the facility. Training resumed immediately upon Sarah's return, with Jennifer developing an even more intensive program designed to prepare for the ultimate challenge of the national championship at Camp Perry. The competition would feature the strongest field in competitive shooting, including international competitors and Olympic hopefuls, who represented the absolute pinnacle of marksmanship achievement. Equipment preparation became increasingly sophisticated as the season progressed, with detailed testing of ammunition lots and rifle adjustments that could affect performance at the margins where championships were won or lost. Sarah's sponsors provided access to the latest technology and expert technical support that had previously been available only to established champions. Physical conditioning intensified as well, with specialized exercises designed to improve the specific muscle groups and coordination skills needed for precision shooting. Sarah's athletic background from high school helped, but the demands of competitive shooting required different types of strength and endurance than traditional sports. Mental preparation took on greater importance as the national championship approached. Jennifer introduced advanced visualization techniques and pressure simulation exercises designed to replicate the stress of competing for national titles. The psychological aspects of elite competition were as challenging as the technical demands, requiring dedicated training and preparation. Practice scores during the final weeks of preparation were encouraging, with Sarah consistently shooting at levels that would be competitive for national championship consideration. Her development had reached a plateau of excellence that reflected her natural ability combined with world-class coaching and intensive training. The question remained whether this preparation would translate to peak performance when it mattered most. The national championship at Camp Perry represented the culmination of Sarah's remarkable first year in competitive shooting. From her nervous first shots at Pine Ridge to competing against the world's finest marksmen would complete a journey that few athletes in any sport had ever accomplished in such a short time frame. The stage was set for what would become a defining moment in competitive shooting history. Camp Perry in August was a spectacle unlike anything Sarah had ever witnessed. The historic range facility buzzed with activity as nearly 300 of the world's finest marksmen prepared for what many considered the most prestigious competition in precision rifle shooting. Temporary buildings housed equipment vendors, while media representatives from around the globe documented the proceedings. The atmosphere was simultaneously festive and intensely serious, reflecting the significance of the event for competitive shooting sports. Sarah arrived 3 days before competition began, taking advantage of the practice opportunities to familiarize herself with the range conditions and equipment setups that would be crucial during the championship. Jennifer Walsh remained close by, providing tactical guidance while helping Sarah maintain the focused mindset that had characterized her best performances throughout the season. The preparation period was essential for adapting to the unique challenges of Camp Perry's historic ranges. Registration revealed that 294 shooters had qualified for the championship, representing every competitive shooting nation and including 47 former national champions. Sarah found herself listed among the Rising Stars category, a designation that carried both recognition and additional pressure to perform at levels worthy of the classification. Media guides included her photograph and brief biography, establishing her as one of the tournament's most intriguing storylines. The opening ceremony was elaborate and formal, featuring military honor guards, national anthems, and speeches from dignitaries who emphasized the championship's role in preserving shooting sports traditions. Sarah stood with the other competitors during the ceremony, still struggling to believe that she belonged among such accomplished marksmen after less than a year of competitive experience. Equipment inspection was rigorous and comprehensive, with officials examining every component of each competitor's setup to ensure strict compliance with championship regulations. Sarah's relatively simple equipment passed without issues, though she noticed that many competitors employed sophisticated accessories that pushed the boundaries of what rules permitted. The technical innovation displayed was impressive and somewhat intimidating. Competition format spanned 4 days with multiple stages testing every aspect of marksmanship skill. Day 1 featured prone shooting at 600 yards, the longest distance Sarah had ever attempted in formal competition. Day 2 included sitting and kneeling positions at intermediate ranges, while days 3 and 4 would culminate with standing positions and a demanding rapid-fire stage that traditionally determined championship winners. Sarah drew firing point number 147 for the opening stage, positioning her near the end of the massive firing line that stretched across Camp Perry's legendary range. The scale was overwhelming, with hundreds of world-class shooters preparing their equipment while spectators filled viewing areas that had witnessed decades of championship competition. Jennifer helped Sarah maintain focus amid distractions that were unlike anything from previous competitions. The 600-yard prone stage represented the ultimate test of precision marksmanship, with environmental factors and equipment capabilities becoming crucial elements of success. Wind conditions were variable and challenging, requiring constant monitoring and compensation that tested even experienced competitors. Sarah's preparation had included extensive practice at similar distances, but championship pressure added complexity that practice sessions couldn't fully replicate. Her opening sighting shots revealed that her rifle was performing well despite the extended distance and challenging conditions. The grouping was acceptable though not perfect, requiring minor scope adjustments to achieve optimal zero for the record shots. Nearby competitors were making similar adjustments, confirming that the conditions were demanding for everyone regardless of experience level. When the record string commenced, Sarah settled into the rhythm that had served her throughout the season. Each shot followed the same deliberate process that Jennifer had refined through months of intensive coaching, with careful attention to wind reading and compensation. The background noise of hundreds of rifles firing simultaneously created an overwhelming cacophony that required mental discipline to ignore. Her prone shooting was solid and competitive, though not spectacular by championship standards. The 20-shot group was respectable, and her score remained within striking distance of the leaders, but the precision demonstrated by top competitors was clearly superior. Jennifer provided encouraging feedback, while emphasizing that consistency across all stages would be more important than any single outstanding performance. Day 1 concluded with Sarah ranked 47th overall, a creditable showing that exceeded many predictions for her championship debut. The leaders were separated by narrow margins, with scores so close that equipment variations and minor technical adjustments could affect final standings. Jennifer analyzed Sarah's performance data while developing strategy modifications for the remaining stages. Today was about establishing position among legitimate contenders, Jennifer explained during their evening debriefing session. Your score keeps you in contention, and the stages ahead favor your particular strengths. Tomorrow, focus on executing perfect techniques, regardless of what other shooters are doing around you. Day 2 began with sitting position at 400 yards, a distance and position combination that had been Sarah's strongest area during practice sessions. Environmental conditions were more favorable than the previous day, with lighter winds that reduced the guesswork involved in compensation calculations. Jennifer's coaching during preparation time helped Sarah achieve the relaxed confidence that characterized her best shooting. Her sitting position performance was outstanding, moving up significantly in overall standings with a score that ranked among the day's finest efforts. The grouping was exceptionally tight for such a challenging distance and position, demonstrating technical mastery that impressed seasoned competitors who had initially dismissed her as an inexperienced newcomer unlikely to challenge established hierarchy. The kneeling position stage maintained Sarah's momentum, with another strong performance that continued her climb through the field. Her score was competitive with the stage leaders, while several higher-ranked shooters struggled with the challenging position requirements. By day's end, Sarah had moved into 23rd place overall, well within striking distance of the top 10 finishers who would receive special recognition. Media attention intensified as Sarah's consistent performance challenged assumptions about her readiness for championship competition. Several shooting magazines requested interviews, while television crews documented her preparation routine and coaching sessions with Jennifer. The coverage was positive but created additional pressure that was new to Sarah's competitive experience. Try to ignore the media circus and stay focused on your shooting fundamentals, Jennifer advised as they prepared for Day 3. Championships are won by executing basics perfectly under pressure, not by getting distracted by external attention that has nothing to do with hitting targets accurately. Day 3 featured the demanding standing position stages that would significantly impact final standings. Standing position at 300 yards was followed by a shorter distance rapid-fire stage that tested different skills while maintaining the precision requirements of championship competition. Sarah approached these stages with confidence built from strong performances during the first 2 days. Her standing position shooting was spectacular, with a score that moved her into 15th place overall and established her as a legitimate contender for top 10 honors. The grouping was remarkably tight for such a challenging position and distance, demonstrating exceptional body control and technique refinement that reflected months of intensive training under Jennifer's guidance. The rapid-fire stage proved more challenging, requiring Sarah to adapt her methodical shooting approach to time pressure that was unlike anything from her previous competitive experience. Her score was competitive but not outstanding, allowing several competitors to close the gap while maintaining her position among the championship's top performers. Day 3 concluded with Sarah ranked 12th overall, an achievement that exceeded all realistic expectations for her championship debut. The competition remained exceptionally close, with fewer than 10 points separating the top 20 shooters. Jennifer emphasized that the final day's stages would be decisive, requiring Sarah to maintain her excellent form, while other competitors felt increasing pressure. "You're shooting at championship level," Jennifer observed, as they reviewed performance data from the day's stages. Tomorrow's stages favor your strengths, and you have nothing to lose since you've already exceeded everyone's expectations. Trust your preparation and execute the techniques that got you to this position. The final day began with standing position at varying distances, followed by the championship's traditional concluding stage that had determined winners for over 50 years. Media attention was intense, with Sarah receiving almost as much coverage as the defending champion and other established stars. The pressure was unlike anything she had experienced, but Jennifer's coaching helped maintain the focused mindset essential for peak performance. Her morning standing position shooting was exceptional, with scores that moved her into 8th place overall and within striking distance of the championship podium. The consistency she had demonstrated throughout the competition was remarkable for any shooter, much less someone competing in her first national championship. Spectators and competitors alike were witnessing something unprecedented in competitive shooting history. The final stage would determine championship placings, with aggregate scores across all previous stages providing the foundation for a dramatic conclusion. Sarah approached this crucial stage with confidence built from 4 days of outstanding shooting, but awareness that many championship contenders traditionally saved their best performances for last. The pressure was intense, but manageable thanks to Jennifer's psychological preparation. As Sarah settled into position for the final stage, she drew upon all the mental preparation techniques that had been developed throughout her remarkable first season. The noise and activity surrounding the firing line faded into background insignificance as she focused entirely on the technical demands of precision shooting. Her breathing rhythm steadied as she prepared for what would become the most important shots of her career. The final stage unfolded like a carefully orchestrated performance, with each shot building upon the previous one in a display of consistency that had spectators and competitors shaking their heads in amazement. Shot after shot found the scoring rings with mechanical precision, creating a group that would be discussed at Camp Perry for decades to come. When the final buzzer sounded, Sarah had completed her championship with a performance that defied all expectations. Scoring of the final stage revealed that Sarah had achieved a near-perfect score, climbing to 6th place overall in what many considered the strongest championship field in recent history. Her aggregate score across all stages was remarkable for any competitor, but unprecedented for someone competing in their first national championship after less than a year of competitive experience. The awards ceremony that evening was elaborate and emotional, with special recognition for Sarah's achievement as the highest-finishing first-time competitor in championship history. Her 6th-place finish earned a substantial trophy, along with automatic qualification for international competitions, opening doors to opportunities that had seemed impossible just months earlier. But the real drama occurred during the ceremony's climactic moment. As officials prepared to announce the championship winner, a scoring discrepancy was discovered that required careful review of all targets from the final stage. The delay created tension throughout the arena as competitors and spectators awaited final results. When officials completed their review, they announced that the scoring error had affected several top competitors' final tallies. Sarah's score remained unchanged, but the corrections elevated her from 6th place to an unprecedented championship victory. The announcement stunned the assembled crowd and created pandemonium that continued for several minutes. The realization that she had won the National Precision Rifle Championship was overwhelming for Sarah, who had begun the year as a complete novice at Pine Ridge Shooting Range. Miguel, Dan Morrison, and Frank Kowalski rushed onto the ceremony stage to celebrate with the new champion, their faces reflecting amazement at what they had witnessed. "This is impossible," Dan Morrison kept repeating as he hugged his former student. "Nobody goes from beginner to national champion in 10 months. This just doesn't happen in competitive shooting." Sarah's victory speech was brief but heartfelt, thanking everyone who had supported her remarkable journey from nervous beginner to national champion. She specifically acknowledged Miguel for encouraging her first visit to Pine Ridge, Dan for his patient instruction, Frank for his mentorship, and Jennifer for coaching that had elevated her to championship level. The immediate aftermath was chaotic, with media representatives seeking interviews while officials processed the unprecedented nature of Sarah's achievement. Her victory would be featured on magazine covers and documented in shooting sports history as the most remarkable individual accomplishment in competitive marksmanship. Equipment sponsors competed to associate their products with the new champion. The drive home from Camp Perry was surreal, with Sarah's championship trophy occupying the passenger seat while she and Miguel tried to process what had occurred. The quiet Tuesday morning when she had first reluctantly agreed to visit Pine Ridge now seemed like ancient history, though less than a year had passed since that initial introduction to shooting sports. Pine Ridge Shooting Range became a pilgrimage destination for aspiring marksmen who wanted to train where the impossible had become reality. Dan Morrison found himself flooded with requests for instruction from shooters seeking to replicate Sarah's rapid development, though he understood that her combination of natural talent and dedicated practice was unlikely to be duplicated. Sarah's championship victory opened doors to international competition and professional opportunities that would have been unimaginable during those nervous first shots at Pine Ridge. But she never forgot the supportive community that had nurtured her development, continuing to practice at the range where her remarkable journey had begun, while inspiring a new generation of shooters who believed that anything might be possible with proper instruction and dedication. The story of how Sarah Martinez snatched victory from more experienced competitors, and how Rangemaster Dan Morrison had declared her the new national champion, became legend in competitive shooting circles, proving that sometimes the most extraordinary achievements come from the most unlikely beginnings.